and thank you for joining me here on Text. Today we're going to be talking about option paralysis and why it's important. So option paralysis, also known as choice paralysis, is when there is too much information and you're overanalyzing, overthinking, or incapable of prioritizing certain aspects of something to the point that your decision-making skills are paralyzed. This can lead to executive dysfunction with some people, and it can lead to other issues. So essentially, this can happen in the craft when you first start and once you've gotten into your field. Say you start off, you don't know where to start. Do you start with astrology? Do you start with cartomancy, tarot cards, which are an easy one to start? Do you start with something really basic like rocks, which are relatively new to be used in craft? Do you start with herbs, and that being such a broad thing to start with and very dangerous to start with? Like, do you start with Eastern or Western herbs? Do you start with modern recipes, or do you start with historically important recipe books? Do you study like alternative medicine, or do you study like real medicine? I like to have books on a variety of things, but this can also create option paralysis in a specific genre. So say you are choosing to study herbs and you don't know where to start. I'm going to link in the description below my favorite medicinal herb video or lecture. They have a bunch of them. They're so wonderful. She is so fun. But you may not know where to start. And if you start with the more pop culture kind of aspects or other things that are just non-specific, you can lead into certain issues as being incapable of like discerning good from bad, and just not picking something, and then just saying, well, I'm into herbs, and make things from which little bit you know, but you can't really learn it off of Instagram. You can't just learn it off of like a basic book. You need real books and real study time. Real study time is important because it impacts what you know and what you do. Just by like studying, you expand your knowledge of the general topic, and it creates this a deeper understanding of the material. If you're only looking at like the basic books you can find on Barnes & Noble shelf, just like top 10 recipes for blah blah blah, or like a BuzzFeed article on why we love ginger, then you're not really going to get the rounded education that you need to understand that type of practice. So not understanding the herbs can lead to problems like killing someone, giving someone a severe reaction, or having not a valid understanding of their body chemistry or the way herbs interact, and can cause serious problems for people. And this is a really big beginner aspect. With astrology, do you start with something like the Tantrics, or do you start with top 10 astrology for now, or sextrology, which is a fun book, but you know, do you start with the old stuff or the new stuff? How do you find the relevance? And this can create that choice paralysis because you don't know where to move, and then you end up being stuck and never going anywhere. So you really have to just decide, okay, I want something, and just go with it. If you can handle setting the books out and just picking like randomly, just going with what you go, do that. That can work. It works just like it does with tarot cards. If you've never done that, just, you're the one. But it can also work with like deciding on, okay, this is the topic that I want. What books do I have on that topic? And setting aside 10 books from that topic, and then reading from that list, and you like go down. Maybe you go alphabetically, maybe you go by color, or you just go by the one that feels like the one in that moment. But you have to stick to it. Hold yourself accountable to keep moving forward, because you can't just let option paralysis keep you from moving. You can't let it keep you from practicing. Like, the way you overcome it is you decide, what do you need? What is for you? What is your objective? And then you have to see, like, what is the most relevant to the thing you want to study right now? And then hold yourself to it. Don't just give up on yourself, and don't just stop. Like, you have to actually study and move forward. So, like, when you do this, you have to remember that you can't just read, which is another thing where I think what option paralysis is, the option to just study or the option to practice. And you have to remember, it's called witchcraft. You are crafting. You are doing things. You are making and producing. It's called a practitioner. You are a practitioner because you practice. If you don't practice, there's no practice. You practice to get good, not because you're going to master it. That's not a realistic expectation for anything, especially as it evolves as you evolve. But you can't just let yourself fall into the study habit. Knowledge is extremely important, but so is actually doing it. If you don't even do like minor rituals, then how can you call yourself a practitioner? You are not teaching what you read, or you're not practicing what you read, practicing what you preach. You're not doing this general thing. Another way to see is that, like, if you don't, like, you have to ask yourself, how deep do you want to go? This both involves picking a topic and how do you delve into it? Like, do you just want surface level, or do you want to actually be knowledgeable in the field that you choose? This works in the same way with your practice. Do you actually want to do a little ritual every week or so and, like, get your hands dirty? You have to be physically involved. This doesn't mean that you're going to be, like, looked down upon because you can't leave your home, because you have physical disabilities that prevent you from getting involved in the community, because practicing alone is just as valid. So is practicing in your home because you don't feel comfortable going outside. That is just as valid. But you still have to put in the effort towards a ritualistic practice. Ceremonies, even if it's a minor one. Like, I try to structure myself a weekly thing where I do something on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. And I still have alarms set to have mindfulness practice and thinking of them, whereas I have rituals on Monday and some Fridays. But I do the mindfulness practice at least 4 times during the week because it's a good habit of keeping it relevant in my mind and keeping it at the forefront of my practice. If you give yourself too much to do, you'll become overwhelmed and stressed out and no longer wish to participate. But if you don't practice, then you're not really respecting your craft, your tradition, and the things that you've learned. There is nothing wrong with being just an occultist who reads, but you have to call it what it is. You are not a practitioner if you're not practicing. That's just how it is. Just be honest with what you're doing. If all you do is 1 ritual a week, that's fine. If all you do is a ritual a week, or when you need it, that's also fine. But be honest with what you do. Don't just say, oh, I'm a practitioner, if you're not really practicing, if you're only doing it on an as-needed basis. It's also fine to do it on an as-needed basis plus structured religion, like practices or experiencing other types of ritual practices. Like, I like to go visit different churches and other, like, group settings that I can find. I've tried different rituals with groups and different covens, and like me and another person and me and a friend just practicing in that way. I've tried different types of prayer and different types of meditation exercises, and these are all valid ways to learn, and it's good to experience something that's new. Which brings me to the option paralysis in practice. As in, you are practicing option paralysis because you want to be more informed. I am very guilty of this because I have over 1,200 books, which is a lot. I've only read about 35% of them, and I don't count encyclopedias as read ever, so like I'll never have 100% of my library completed because like I don't like to consider an encyclopedia read or a spell book read unless it's a grimoire of a certain type, then it considers it read. But it's just, how is it structured? Just like you wouldn't consider a recipe book read, even if you read it, because it's like, it's a regular reference guide. But like, it brings into the idea of you're reading to inform yourself and to educate yourself. And one of the things I brought up in Spiritual Toxicity, which I will link below, is the idea that like, we shouldn't just read our side of an argument. You have the Republican and the liberal side, you have third parties, you should be informed on all these fronts to understand how someone else thinks. I think you should also do this with your practice and other people to make yourself relevant in the community and more understanding of where someone else is coming from. It can prevent misunderstandings. It can also improve your practice by diversifying in what you do. This is relevant with studying, like with your Wiccan. Don't just read purely Wiccan text, especially when it becomes the same thing over and over again, because you're going to feel less reliant on formal education and books. Whereas you can read the more You can read more ceremonial things, or you can read the Abrahamic basis from which it comes from. You can understand a little bit more from that perspective, because it'll keep you more relevant, and it'll also help you to learn more and just have a broader understanding of the history and general importance of your own craft. I find this helps us overcome certain biases, and it can help us overcome learned behavior and unlearn that behavior. To unlearn is to discard from the memory. Usually you see it as a process of removing outdated information and like rigid styles. Like you see it with teachers removing their rigid styles of teaching to promote a better understanding for students with a different style of learning and different comprehension levels. You can also see this with being conditioned to feel a certain way. Like, kind of an example of being conditioned is like we can create an aversion to something based off our experiences with it. Like my last experiences with my fairy star, and the reason why I took it off, are that it was constantly a reminder of gossip that was going on and other toxic behavior that I wasn't comfortable with, and I didn't feel that it was fair of me to keep that reminder on my person. Even though it has larger meanings, it had such a large importance to me as becoming a priestess and as being like idolizing this person who was also doing things that I didn't think would benefit me anymore to focus on, which is why I removed my fairy star. Just like I left Christianity and officially left, like I've been still practicing, but like in a weird limbo zone, I guess, because of the general community that has just misunderstandings and the way that they thought about things. For those who don't know, I had a sister who had spina cerebellar ataxia type 11. It's just a really big thing to say. Her cerebellum hates her, and she had problems and was basically like bedridden, could not move, could not speak, could not eat on her own. She was on it was a lot. And when she passed away, I was given one of the little chick tracts about the Little Princess. It's a little comic about like a little girl who wants to go out for Halloween. So she does. She dresses up as a little princess and she goes out, and while she is out trick-or-treating, she receives a chick tract thing and calls the people to her house that gave her that while she was out trick-or-treating. They come to her, they talk to her, she becomes saved, and then she passes away like right at the end of that night. And she's saved and gets to go to heaven because like they saved her. Which, I was from a Christian Baptist, and we don't believe that you have to be like you're a child, you're an infant or a young child. Like, you should already be admitted into the garden, and that's not the kind of attitude I want to be given. This was given to me after my sister passed away. Like, it was given to me like at the funeral, or like right after the funeral at the church, and I felt that was really inappropriate. And I'd already had problems with the complete community as a whole, and it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and you get conditioned to the actions of the community that you no longer want to be involved in that community. I don't really have a problem with the Christian faith, it's just the community practice that bothers me. And that general community is what caused me to leave, even though like I had fun going to some church. Like sometimes you get made fun of for no reason, like it'd be completely irrelevant. But these things leave a bad taste in your mouth. They condition you to be against a certain thing, even though you don't have to clump it all together. You have to make the distinction between this one thing was bad, but this is not bad as a whole. This can be a lot of things in society, but I find this relevant because it's like I'm still studying like more holy magic. I still do that. Like, I'm still interested in all types of magic and all types of spirituality and all types of like the faiths that are out there, but some things just leave a bad taste in your mouth. So like community interactions can leave a bad taste, and you just feel conditioned to avoid those things. You do need to decondition yourself for some things, which is to reform or reversal of conditioned behavior, to treatment for generally like phobias and other anxiety disorders, to help you turn that fear response and to certain stimuli and like get it under control. In my case, I would say like using that to get over certain biases, as they brought up in Occultism with a Side of Salt, the anti-Abrahamic bias in the like witchcraft and Wiccan community, knowing a lot of the European like practices that we have that have changed, they do have a Christian bias to them, and like avoiding it specifically because you don't want to like interact with it needs to be overcome if you want to have a full practice and a full faith and a full understanding. Plus, it helps to impact your education and your understanding of the community as a whole. I live in the Bible Belt, and living here, it is really important for me to understand the overall community, and it's also important for me to understand the variety that there is in the community, and how most people are very like PTSD with the Christian practice and faith, and just generally bringing up the Bible can scare a lot of people. And I feel that with the options that we have available, like, you should be able to bring up these different faiths and not be afraid. I understand that we all have problems. Like, I have problems, I just told you. But I feel like studying the variety of things and avoiding option of paralysis because you're overanalyzing the situation, just read the book. In some cases, it's you have too many books to read. And you can have too much, and sometimes knowing more means you're knowing less, because you learn more on all sides of the situation and have a well-rounded education, and then at that point you know less, because now you've unlearned behavior and now you have a broader, more open mind, and you're able to understand more of what you didn't before. Or you've unlearned toxic behaviors or attitudes towards certain general themes, and now you can move forward in a way that isn't affecting you, and it won't impact your study, and it won't impact your general understanding of more things. Just like if you remove the bias by reading more, then you have that option available to improve your own faith, if that makes sense. So not only are you not going to limit yourself by the amount of books you read, just pick one. Just do it. I have to do it too. It's so hard. Just pick one and go. Just do it. Nike. But like, don't be like afraid to move forward in a way that might seem frightening too, and overanalyzing it, creating that bias that you don't want to study a certain thing because of its relation to this other thing. You can know something that you disagree with and still go. Like, I don't think I agree completely with Taoism. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think it fits with me. I don't think it fits with the issues that I have going on and the things that I have going on in this lifetime. I don't think it fits with me. I like all my stuff. I don't want to try and blame manifestations and things on depression, or say that I'm just like deliberately miserable because I want to be miserable. I'd rather, walk through it in a more productive fashion than that, and just say I have problems this lifetime, but like, that's not going to make me miserable all the time. Like, I have problems, but I'm working through them. I'm a work in progress. It's hard to do perfection all the time and all at once. It's always a work in progress for a masterpiece. So, alright, you guys. Let me know in the comments below. I know there was a bit of a rambling thing, but I like this take a lot better than the other one, which I will submit as an outtake, don't worry. How do you experience option or choice paralysis? Do you have too many options, or do you just not know where to start? Do you overthink what you're reading and put too much focus on different themes that are present in what you want to read, that you're afraid to read it because of how it will impact you, or because of how it will generally like affect your like mindset, or how it connects to your history? How does option paralysis affect you? Where did you start with your craft? Did you just pick a thing and go? I know I was a child when I started mine, and it was from when I was a little girl. It was like elementary, middle school is when I started buying books, because I had my own card when I was 12. Because I had made a little money with my mom and put it in the bank, and I would go to buy books online because I've always been a book nerd. And I researched for days and days and days until I found what I thought was a real witchcraft book, not knowing that you could really put your own personal gnosis into it and you could put your own understanding and impact it into your craft. So like I found what to me felt like real work, and I took that, and from there I moved into like practicing things that just felt right instead of just books, because I didn't know what I could trust. Where did you start? Mine was on love, and it was on love and being good and being helpful, and that was the kind of magic I looked at, was just self-love and love of others and promoting self-love in others, which is pretty easy. Where did you start? Did you start with a book? Did you start with an article? Where did you go? Alright, thank you guys. Like, subscribe, share, please. I would love to share this with the world and get more subscribers. Let me know in the comments below all your things. Bye, you guys.